I thought was such a neat solution to a common problem.
Yeah, so it's great to talk to you guys. I've been really excited about some of the builds that I've been working on, and just maker pipe in general as an accessory to to work with. And um, this is a fun opportunity to just have a chat about that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you think so. I love talking with customers, and this is something we started a few weeks ago, and it's brought a lot of satisfaction to hear your stories and talk to customers. So I really appreciate it, and I also really appreciate all the community engagement you've had. You've gotten on the MakerPipe community and posted a lot, so thank you. I've enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, my projects aren't super complicated, but I think what inspired me to actually build something was seeing the success of others. I think I kind of captured, the I encountered MakerPipe, I think, at like the most appropriate time frame in your evolution, because there's multiple connectors available to me. I was able to see examples of other people in the community that have built something, and I think what that did was show me that what I wanted to do actually was possible. And so it didn't really make me feel like I was, trying to undertake something that wasn't achievable in the end. And here's the result, right? I don't know if the sound is good for you, but it is raining in Portland right now, and my canopy can kind of
No, come
amplify that
on,
like a drum.
rain in Portland.
Yeah, right. Uh, so yeah, I think it's really been a great. I guess I think of it as a collaboration because you guys are so interactive, with your community response, and really having the opportunity to even have a community website is fantastic. But it's really a result of building confidence for somebody who's kind of a DIYer anyway, but feeling like, yeah, I can pull this off. I can talk a little bit about that, like the inspiration for what I built, if that's interesting to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very meaningful to me to hear that the community helped you in that way.
Absolutely. So, I was thinking about like what would be sort of on the agenda for our discussion today, and I thought, it'd be kind of fun to talk a little bit about like why I'm even on this call with you. Like the whole point of our conversation was the result of, I think, just an evolving admiration for the product and what it can do. But I don't know that I would have gotten there if I didn't have a problem to solve. And I think that's probably true of most of your customers, is that there's kind of an engineering challenge that you face. And I thought I could talk a little bit about how that worked out for me. And then we can get into some of the other fun things that I've been doing since then. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so it kind of started before the pandemic. I was really had taking interest the last couple of years in making pizza, which I know has like no relationship at all to like conduit or steel connectors. And but my love of pizza making, anybody who's interested in that hobby, who gets into like baking on stone or steel or high temperatures, maybe migrating from an oven to a grill, and maybe something like purpose built for making pizza. And you can see behind me, I've got a pizza oven that's relatively new for me anyway. But that love of pizza really is always like changing. Like there's an evolving process. You never make the perfect pizza. There's always like, what if I change the flour, or what if I ferment it a little bit longer? Like you're always thinking about ways to innovate. And I've, heard from other, pizza enthusiasts who have been doing it for, a decade or more. It's like, yeah, you're never quite getting there. It's kind of like, making an artist drawing or a painting. Like until you just pick up the pencil or the paintbrush and stop, it just keeps going. And so for me, that was super exciting. And then the pandemic hit. And one of the things we loved to do is invite family and friends over, and share, my next experiment with pizza making. Can't do that during the pandemic, at least not safely. And so my wife was suggesting, maybe there's a way, and we have this really great deck outside. Maybe there's a way to stay outside to keep socially distant, but do it in a way that keeps us warm and out of the rain. And for the whole like season, the winter season in Portland, it rains, and so it gets cold when you're wet, and you don't want to be outside when you're cold and wet. So she's like, well, maybe we can buy a canopy And so we looked at some of the commercial products that exist, and there's some really cool things out there. Extendable motorized canopies that you attach to the house, and it's an architectural challenge. Like, it's an installation, and I didn't know that I wanted to, first of all, face that expense, because these things are thousands of dollars installed. You could be spending 10 grand on something big like that. Um, and I thought, okay, well, what off the shelf products exist? I mean, we have one of those pop-up canopies that are used for like farmers markets or art conferences outside and so on. They're usually like a 10 by 10 um, shape. And, my deck is exactly 8 feet wide. And I was just like, it just misses, maybe, these things usually are collapsing. And so maybe I thought, well, if I compress it, it just wasn't going to work out. We have another like section of the deck that kind of goes around the corner, but even it was like a foot too small. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm doing a search for other canopy sizes, maybe there's like an 8 by 8 that would work. Well, you start doing those searches online, and because we were in lockdown, this was back last year, probably early spring, and so I stumbled across this website that's running a company out of Eugene, Oregon, so somewhat close by, selling canopy parts, and I see that you can custom build a canopy out of EMT, which was their suggested main building member, and then various diameters, and then there's a whole selection of purpose-built canopy pipe fittings, and these are heavy steel with an eye bolt to hold the pieces together. You see them often in various trades where they're building things outside, or people who are setting up big canopies for weddings or something like that. I thought, okay, this is kind of on the right track, and so you start searching for the component parts, and it didn't take long before MakerPipe showed up in my search. I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is an interesting alternative. Like, they're small, they're economical, they fit the same EMT that the canopy builder trade, the DIY canopy trade is using. But they seem like they're going to be a better solution for me, being a DIYer, and I'm not having to make an investment in something that's as big or as heavy or as permanent, and it's repurposable. Like, I could build other things with this product. So I did a design, and I posted that in the community. It was like a little scratched out, drawing on grid paper. And the thought was, if I took this whole space, which is like 24 feet long, and I kept 10-foot, off the shelf conduit pipes without cutting them, if I got the cantilever mount point up on the wall of our house here high enough, then you do a little geometry, Pythagorean theorem, how far do I have to go before I'm clearing this railing so that I can cantilever this thing out? And the beauty is 8 feet translates to basically a foot of overhang when it's at a nice angle. I'm like, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly the right dimensions, which is totally opposite the feeling I was getting with those off-the-shelf pop-up canopies. So I thought, okay, what can I do to minimize my investment and take advantage of like the best properties of all the different MakerPipe fittings at my disposal? And I end up buying T connectors and then 180s to build really the whole thing. And I think the innovative part for me was coming up with the design, and this is kind of cumbersome, I realize, but these sections here are 4 feet wide on center, and they go back all the way up to the peak. And there's 3 of them. So there's one here, there's one at that end, and there's one at this end. And they're connected together with a 6-foot piece, connecting at the top eave and at the bottom edge. So imagine with legs, you've got basically 3 4-foot sections to create this roof line, basically. And I thought, well, that is kind of simple. I was curious about whether a 6-foot span using 180s between the 2 4 feet would be too much, like if it was going to sag or not. I hadn't had my hands on the materials yet, so I needed to mess around with that. And so I just thought, well, let's just see what happens. I mean, the worst thing, it's not a huge investment, and even if I can't make it work with MakerPipe and the conduit, I still have these great MakerPipe pieces that I can build other stuff with. So I dove in. It's like 15 pipes that I had to buy to build this, including the legs. And my only challenge, and you see a lot of my posts about this on the community forum, was how was I going to attach it to the wall, to the outside of my house? And that's where I had the inspiration to use those marine Bimini connectors. And for people who aren't familiar, the Marine Bimini is basically like a hinge. There's a bracket. There's a lot of different kinds depending on your situation, but they're used for canopies over boats. And there's a bracket with a pin through a hole, and that captures the second piece, which is sort of like the second half of a hinge. So it pivots around that hole. And if you look on the community, you can see the examples. But the challenge was these Bimini brackets. I needed to insert a piece of conduit into the eyelet part so that it could, be received by the hinge bracket. And I knew that was going to be a weakness in the long run because, there's a chance that pipe could slip out, or the maker pipe I'm attaching to that stub could slip out. And unfortunately, we had, some pretty bad snow and ice situations over the course of the past couple of weeks here in Portland. We lost power for like 48 hours. It's pretty awful.
Oh, wow.
But the snow piled up in this canopy, and everything was holding. Like, it was really it's still a strong build. I was like totally surprised. Like, the canopy itself is basically like a fiber embedded poly tarp, and it was holding. It was sagging, but all the pipes and the conduit and everything was fine. And I'm underneath there trying to like knock the snow off. And as I'm bouncing it, my kind of worst fear came true, and the pipe slipped out of that Bimini connector, and basically the whole thing came crashing down. And I have a lot of furniture out here, so I was fine. I mean, I was like underneath the furniture for a few seconds, and like, okay, that wasn't so good. In
I'm
the
glad
end,
you're okay.
yeah, thanks. In the end, I rebuilt everything, and the only change I really made was the Bimini connectors now are being captured. Instead of using the eyelet piece, I used a piece of half size conduit and compress the ends a little bit so that I could get them past the constriction in your maker pipe connectors, and then use a bolt hole. I could basically through hole with the maker pipe bolt. So I'm not drilling your product at all. I'm just using the built-in bolt holes and bolts. And now my canopy connection now is basically like bolted to the wall. And the other end of the Bimini connector, the hinge piece with the pin, that's screwed back through my siding and into the stud wall for 3.5, 4 inches. So that's not coming out. Anyway,
Yeah. Randy,
super strong.
I'd love to put it up on the screen because I think this is where,
Yeah.
I really realized your DIY engineering mind at work, because this I thought was such a neat solution to a common problem.
Okay, so you got that on the screen, which is great. So you can see the bracket that gets mounted to the wall, sort of on the top edge. There's this great spring, and you flip a little toggle on the right-hand side, and then that pin slips out. And then the eyelet Bimini piece is the lower half.
Mhm.
Now that's the weak part. It is being attached to maker pipe. Inside is a stub. I think, as you rightfully figured out when I first posted this, that stub has set screws in the stainless steel piece, which is fine. But the maker pipe, you're really just relying on friction fit maker pipe
Mhm.
to conduit.
Yeah.
And in most situations that's fine. But I guess uh, sort of for future reference, if I knew that there was going to be weight pulling like basically to the lower right corner of that image,
Mhm.
there's the potential that you can't hand crank that hex nut down tight enough to overcome whatever weight you might be putting on it. And honestly, like, I don't know what what that translates to in terms of actual like measurable weight. And we're talking about snow on a 24 by 10 canopy spread across 4 of these Bimini connections.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was, I think, the weak part in my design. So I replaced that. Right there, you
Yeah.
see them sort of in an up position. I've got them hanging in a 180-degree down position now. And I think some of the
Okay.
final images I've updated here
Yeah,
show
I
the,
have that here. Let me navigate there. There
yeah. So
was
here
the
we go.
solution. You want to talk about this? Because this was really neat.
This is my solution. So rather than use that second half of the Bimini connection, I took a piece of 1/2. What is it? The trade name is it 1/2 inch conduit, or
Hmm.
is it they just call it 1/2?
Half inch EMT
Half
conduit, I
inch.
think.
Yeah, I know that's like a nominal dimension, but at any rate, the 1/2 inch piece is now inside the maker pipe connector, and it's compressed to like 9/8 of an inch in width, which allows it to slip past the constriction point, and then that hole, which is just a 1/4 inch, hole, allows the maker pipe bolt to go right through it. Now I'm just making a little stub because the other half of that stub I've compressed in my vise 180 degree rotated so that it becomes the eyelet for my Bimini connector. And then I'm sleeving it with just some of your shrink wrap to protect it. But basically, I've reconstructed the Bimini, half of the Bimini with Bimini bracket with maker pipe, and then through hole bolted half-inch EMT. And this solution, I mean, it's going to have to either destroy steel to pull out, or rip completely out of my siding. And we're talking stainless steel stud screws, or framing screws going 3.5 inches into my house. So it would be
Right.
a real problem if this came off. And honestly, I wouldn't let the snow pile up again.
Uh,
So
and
yeah, that's
and I'm seeing it now, Randy. So this part here, if you can see where my cursor is, that's the
yep,
half-inch EMT squished. Is that right?
that's exactly right.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
That's
you
exactly
know,
right.
great job on this. I think it really got the wheels turning for me, and I'm hoping other people too, of how you solve this problem. Because not only does it work for your application, but boy, having something like this for Maker Pipe in general to eliminate that ability for it to come out and overcome the friction of the joint would be just fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm not worried at all about like the puzzle piece joint going around the horizontal. I mean, that's not going to change.
Right.
Pardon me. But yeah, this is my solution, and I was inspired by Mario, who's another member of the community forum. Yes,
Hmm.
Mario has a similar idea, only his involves using the 3/4 EMT, and he makes a little cut on the top and bottom sides of a piece of pipe, and then he compresses the end of the 3/4. The tricky part there is anytime you're compressing the EMT in a vise. Yeah, there you go. So he's changing that vertical dimension and compressing it to fit beyond the constriction, and then allowing the maker pipe bolt to go through. But anytime you're doing that, the PMT will also expand, and so then it won't fit as you slide it in. And
Mm,
his solution is to hold that from expanding in like a little bench vise while he compresses it with an arbor press. I would have
right.
done that, but I don't have an arbor press, and frankly, I didn't want to spend that much time on it, and I ended up spending quite a bit of time. But I think because I had a piece of 1/2 inch GMT laying around, pardon me, I was able to use that. And I think my only problem was keeping it centered inside the maker pipe connector. And you could just use the sleeves that you guys sell for using 1/2 inch EMT in your connectors. Or what I did was I just put a couple of bands of friction. It's basically a heat shrink, but it's the friction bands around that 1/2, so I could slide it through a tiny stub of 3/4, and that keeps it centered. But I really just needed something for the maker pipe connector to grab onto, while that through hole bolted piece is really holding all of the weight.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes
Anyway,
a
so
lot of sense, and it looked like it came out great. And then here you are underneath the
yeah,
canopy again, triumphant
2.0.
2.0, and you posted some pictures. And which beautiful deck, by the way. I say it every time I talk about your builds, but beautiful deck and beautiful treehouse. I think you coined that term, but it
I
looks
did, yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, I think we're really kind of lucky. I mean, lockdown's been a problem for everybody, but we both my wife and I have continued to work, which we feel very grateful and fortunate about that. And then we're stuck in this treehouse, which I guess if you're going to be stuck somewhere, it's a really beautiful view. So we feel super fortunate that we have this space to deal with during lockdown.
Hmm.
Now there's enough room on that deck, of course, to host another couple for pizza dinners, and I'm excited to do that. In fact, it's Friday tonight. My brother's coming over, so we're gonna have some family over for pizza, which is great because we're under the canopy again, and the snow's all gone. It's just a little bit cold. We have some propane heaters that we use out here under our tables to keep our lights and stuff warm. But it's
Oh,
been a great solution. Like Maker Pipe has enabled a continued relationship face to face with family and occasionally friends. We keep our our bubble pretty tight during lockdown, but nevertheless, I don't know that we would be out here if it weren't for Maker Pipe and me being able to put this together without too much trouble.
wow. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we had a small part in that. That's fantastic, Randy. So what's on the menu tonight? What kind of pizza is being served tonight?
As I said earlier, it's constantly evolving, and sometimes that means we change the toppings around. But we'll probably do. I usually make a, pardon me. I usually make a margarita pizza, which is just a standard, tomato, basil, fresh mozzarella. We'll do a pepperoni. My wife got some sausage that we want to try out. So it's always like, let's try this type of sausage or let's try that type of pepperoni. We pretty much have it narrowed down now. We like a particular brand of each, but so we'll try out some of that. We'll probably put some Mama Lil's, which is a local company that makes these hot peppers in oil.
Oh,
And so we love those. And then uh, she found a pizza that's made up in Seattle at this Seattle restaurant called Serious Pie. I don't know if they're still running or doing delivery during lockdown and so on. I hope so. But we love one of their pizzas, which is a Yukon Gold potato pizza, which is it doesn't have a red sauce. It's basically just olive oil, but then you sprinkle Romano cheese and rosemary when it comes out. It's fantastic. So we're looking
well,
forward
that
to that.
sounds delicious.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple other things, sort of on the agenda with pizza. I haven't really had a chance to talk to too many people about these, but I use them quite a bit. This is the Maker Fight Minis, obviously, and it's been really a great creative inspiration for me to mess around with builds, or like people have posted questions about, hey, how can I do this railing? And it's really easy to answer that question and say, well, here's a photo. Sorry, I've got a tickle. But anyway, this is such a great way to prototype ideas, and it's you're not going to do anything super structural out of this, but you're basically able to see. And for me, it's great because I can count how many pieces do I need to order from you guys, like, and then you throw on a few more, right? Because you never know what you're going to have to come up with on the fly for a solution to another problem. So anyway, so this is an example of my stand for pizza fields, and it's right over here. I don't know if you can see this, but I did post it. So that's the pizza field stand. I don't know if
And
you
the
can see
pizza
that, but
peel is the large utensil that moves pizza around the oven, right?
that's right. Yeah. So these things you need to have them at hand when you're putting when you're launching the pizza into the oven, and then you usually hang that one up, and you use a different type to rotate it. And you don't have to, but the smaller style is great for rotating because you can manipulate the pizza while it's still in the oven. Whereas you can't use the small one to launch because the dough is sagging around the edges, right? So you need something big to deliver it, but you really want something small to manipulate it once it's in. And so having those at hand, for me anyway, was really important. And the fact that I'm outside and there's a potential for rain and so on, I don't want to set them down.
Hmm.
I don't want to lay them on the ground. I guess I could lay them on a table, but the whole point is we'll have guests, and the tables will be occupied, by whoever we've invited over, and I don't have a lot of counter space outside. So anyway, having a hook to put these on was key, and I started by putting that uh, uh, horizontal bar here, mounting it right to that leg for my canopy, which was great. But this canopy probably isn't going to stay up all summer, but my pizza making will. And so I wanted something that was at least mobile, and I could position next to my pizza oven wherever it happens to be on the deck. When it comes time to disassemble this canopy and put it away until next fall. We're not there yet, obviously. It's still spring rain.
Right. What's the pizza oven surface that you're cooking on?
It's stone. So I have a pizza oven called the Uni Coda 16, which is a 16-inch stone. It's basically a material called corderite, which is what's used in kilns for shelving.
Oh, yeah.
So if you imagine a stoneware kiln where they're stacking up a bunch of different pots and bowls and cups and so on, the furniture inside of a kiln is usually made of this material, and it's super resistant to like thermal stresses and changes of temperature related to the heat that you're applying inside a kiln. So it's perfect for a pizza oven because it's not going to crack when you heat up that oven.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
and this
Yeah.
little thing, I've got to hook up to mains gas, so it's running on just natural gas. But most of the time they're propane or wood fired.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm very familiar with that material. My father is a potter and has been for many
Okay.
years. So we
Oh, that's
had
fantastic.
various types of kilns at our house, and I grew up learning about stoneware and that kind of material.
Oh, I love that. So that was sort of a hobby of mine some years back, just doing pottery, and I really got into it. I We did a lot of high fire reduction stoneware. So it's where you're basically taking the kiln and you clamp all down the exits. You starve it of oxygen, and that
Uh-huh.
draws color out of the glazes. And anyway, it's really fun. That's cool that you were into that. So did you actually like make pottery and get your hands dirty with that stuff?
My dad tried his best, and I spent some time in the studio, and took some classes. But I think, like any kid growing up, there's that barrier there that it might not take. Certainly, his work ethic and working with his hands translated, but just not with pottery.
Right. Yeah, I can remember enjoying that so much and making teapots because that combined a lot of the different disciplines you need to make handles and lids and spouts
Mhm.
and everything. And like it's one object that encapsulates like the whole hobby.
Right.
Um, and then like thinking, well, I'm never gonna like probably be a potter by trade because the number of teapots I'd have to make to for me to and the prices I'd have to sell them at to make a comfortable living. It's like, no, this is just gonna be a hobby.
Yeah.
But I miss it. I haven't put my hands on clay and made anything for a really long time. I think it'd be fun to get back into. Maybe someday.
Yeah. But now it's on to pizza. That's the
Yeah,
craft.
pizza's a current thing. There's a couple other things about this canopy that I don't know if I've posted about this, but these legs here, I don't know if you can see them. There's one.
Oh no, I
So
don't think I've seen that detail.
so this leg is essentially compressed between the ground where I've got one of these rubber feet. I don't know if you can
Hmm.
see that. I'll try to. So there's a rubber foot down there at the bottom, and then there's just this like 2T sort of L bracket, and there's another rubber foot up underneath my railing. And this is holding this leg on. Like I can't pull this
Oh
up.
wow. Yeah, that's
And
looks
so
super sturdy.
yeah, so if I get a huge gust of wind, this isn't going anywhere because it's just compressed underneath here. Not everybody's going to be able to take advantage of an idea like that, but this is the kind of thing where you just like it's more of an engineering mindset. But you look at something and think, I can improve that. All I need is two T's and a couple of stubs, And I think I've looked at this canopy enough times now where I'm sort of running out of ways to innovate it. But anyway, that's one more thing. I'm going to use that technique to build a bird feeder, and I don't want to drill into my deck first of all, or this nice railing, and risk messing it up. But if I can make a leg and a compression mechanism that basically lets me tuck something underneath that railing and really tighten it, I don't have any problem having like a cantilever bird feeder attached that way.
Mhm.
I've done some other things with like zip ties around the railings, but then you run the risk of somebody scratching. The heat shrink around the maker pipe or around the conduit was a stroke of brilliance. I think it's fantastic to be able to get color on these projects, but also to protect anything that's touching them. Really smart idea. So I've taken advantage of that heat shrink idea that you guys had, and I think that it's really a smart way to go.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, that looks incredibly sturdy. And I'm sorry I perpetuated the rumor, started the rumor that it was wind
Yeah,
that brought down your your canopy.
that's no problem.
No, I mean, wind's no problem. It has to be you, bouncing on it with
Yeah,
snow.
yeah. So anyway, lesson learned there. Like, don't risk. If you can take your canopy down because you think there's going to be a problem with the weather, take it down. I built this thing so that it can be easy to remove it from the frame if I need to, and I didn't do it. I went to bed like, well, I hope nothing happens. It's and that's fine. It was so sturdy and the wind wasn't the issue, and I was already successfully getting snow off of it. The next day,
Right.
I was careless and But anyway, it's better canopy now because I have those through those bolted through hole Bimini replacements. So yeah, it just you take it iteratively, right? Every every problem is just a learning experience to improve. So anyway,
That's it. That's that continuous improvement.
yep,
And you've done other things, really neat things like you've hung speakers on the canopy. I mean, once
yeah,
you have built the structure, I definitely want to show that if you wouldn't mind just mentioning
no, that's
that.
fine. So forgot to grab the speaker when I came out here, but that same leg I was pulling on, you can see it there in this picture. It's the center of the three legs, and there's
Right
yeah
here.
that little
Oh,
diagonal piece of so that is a piece of 3/4 conduit attached to that leg with a couple of T's.
mm-hmm.
And I'm using the Sonos Move speaker, which has a convenient handle. It's like a battery operated Bluetooth speaker that can also connect to your Wi-Fi network. Yeah, so that thing. There it is. So yeah, it's just the handle that you normally use to carry the speaker around because it has a pretty heavy battery in it. Um, Doubles as like a really easy like hanging point. And this for this purpose, my piece of EMT is probably a little longer than it needs to be because it hangs out the bottom. But it's a scrap, right? Like you're looking at pieces that are just cut from the other projects that I did, and it's like, well, I'll just grab this piece and a couple of T's, and boom, I've got a great speaker hanger.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that inspired the hooks for my pizza peels, which now became a stand. But yeah, it's this thinking, and I think when I started doing this, I think that's when I posted a message. It may have been in response to one of your messages, or maybe it was a message you sent me after I placed another order. But it's like, I need to order more of this stuff because I'm having ideas on the fly with scrap that I can't execute unless I have my hands on a whole bunch of maker pipe. So anyway, I think that's one of the most exciting things about your product is that, once you solve an engineering challenge with it, hopefully you are smart enough to buy some extras because you're going to see some other things that now you hadn't thought of. It changes your paradigm, right? You start to incorporate MakerPipe into, the list of potential solutions to things, the constraints that you work within to solve any engineering project now change because MakerPipe exists. And I love that. It opens up more possibilities.
That's great. Yeah. And this is proof absolutely because your canopy turns into also a way to hold your speakers just with a few connectors. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. I'm glad you found it as a good tool to solve these problems.
Yeah, and I'm only scratching the surface. I mean, the whole point of this was, to be able to continue to have family and friends over for to share meals during COVID lockdowns. But the other projects that people are building is so inspiring. I have considered making desks, the types of tables that I've seen, solutions that I don't even know that I need yet. They're going to come. I just know over the course of the next year, there's going to be, a lot of other ideas that are going to come along that MakerPipe will help me solve. So I'm excited about what's next.
Well, great, Randy. I can't wait to see it too. And thanks for all your input and helping people in the community. And more importantly, I mean your time and your business today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I received inspiration, so it's an easy way to give back. And this is a great example, and I appreciate you guys, feeling so comfortable to do these reach outs and interviews. It's a lot of fun to participate. It's neat to see the company grow.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I appreciate that. You have a great evening. I hope your pizzas turn out fantastic.
I think they will.
Okay. All right. Great talking with you, Randy. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate the time.
Bye.
See you later.